Hello, my name is Carlo Piana. I will be joined by my colleague Alberto Pianon. We are lawyers at Array and we have an extensive experience dealing with open source compliance, especially in the embedded systems scenario. Without much introduction, let me briefly say a general words on legal compliance. The very first question on compliance is why? Why should I at all be bothered by licensing and conditions and other constraints? The first and the most evident reason should be on legal considerations. Of course, you can be forced to compliance and suffer consequences if you are not complying. But for any reason you may think you are immune from litigation consequences and stuff. There are other considerations you should be attentive to, and the first is social. Last year here at Linaro I have introduced the concept of respect, RESPECT. By reusing software, you get into a community. You are a citizen of this community and you should be a good citizen of this community, because this is where you retribute, you pay off those investing time, money, effort to produce the software that you are reusing. And the society works this way. But there is a further, maybe more compelling reason. And speaking from my point of view, is probably even more important. In order to be for your software to be accepted, and if you do open source, you probably want to be popular and received and reused. You must make sure that your product, your software is viable. And viable means it's properly written, with as few bugs as possible, as few insecurities as possible, and finally creating the least friction. And I assure you, if you're not done your homework the proper way, those downstream will pay attention to the fact that you have not done so, and you will be a pain to them to make sure that they need to be compliant, legally responsible for the software they are redistributing. So this is another reason why. There are different levels of how good you are in complying. Let's say bronze, silver, and gold. The first level and necessary one, you must make sure that you are compliant. What you are distributing doesn't convey any implicit legal risk to your downstream because of your selection, your combination, and what you have done to the software that you are using combined. So first thing, know what's inside your product, what the licensing is, how well they match to the outbound license, to the product you are distributing, the artifact combining all the software, including your own, and make sure that this is okay. And the entire process must be made as a process, not as an impromptu activity that you do sometimes, somehow. This is a very basic level. The next level is to make sure that others know what you have done, so they can second guess, not just rely faithfully that you have done it properly, but showing what's inside and how it's been assessed. And this is usually done with a very basic software bill of materials, which is a standard in the supply chain to say, oh, in my package, these are the components. In software, these are the components and these are the licenses. This is how they combine together. So a recipient have a machine readable list of components. We have decided to use reuse, which is a standard by the Free Software Foundation Europe, to state what your own software, first-party software, is licensed under, and with a fine-grained, file-level detail, and machine-readable as well, and with even the actual licenses that apply to each and every file in the distribution. Next level, gold level, open chain conformance. Open chain is an ISO standard 5230, and it provides mechanisms, rules, principles to be conformant, that your process is properly documented, you produce the right artifacts, you have the right counter points, you are staffed the functions, and people are briefed, and everything flows together. If you are conformant, you are at the highest level, and if you get certified by third party, even better. There are people saying you are actually following, and this is an ongoing process anyway. It's not something you achieve forever. There is something you achieve continuously. So that means when you should start. You can do both way, post-mortem or continuous. Post-mortem means that you eventually, at the end of the process, say, oh, let's look back if I have made any mistake. That's most of the time this is too late. You should have started way before, ideally from the selection point onwards. So we introduced the concept of continuous compliance along with continuous implementation and continuous development, and mostly this should be automated in to some point, depending on how complex is your structure. And now let us see how what we discussed looks like into the project we are presenting today. And so let me introduce ALLSCENARIO OS. ALLSCENARIO OS is an operating system, multi-kernel one, directed to portable and IoT devices. It's based on Yocto and BeatBake, so there are some idiosyncrasies in what the software is selected by this platform. You might be very well familiar to the environment. It's built to produce different builds for different target platforms. So the software base is different from platform to platform, even slightly. And the sheer number of packages just gives an idea of the complexity of the task. We are speaking of thousands, maybe tens of thousands, and several gigabytes of software all in one. So we need to assess all of this and give evidence. So our approach, and thankfully that of Huawei, mainly Davide Ricci, has been to be in the fullest open since day one, and compliance since center and front of the development process. It's the project is with open chain as a fundamental building block from day zero. It's not completely, it's not completely done, but we think that it sets an example and for others to follow. It started as an internal project at Huawei, following Harmony OS, and then codename Open Harmony, and now ALLSCENARIO OS, which is a working title. I'm not at liberty to discuss the final name, but it's going to be released at least it's not official at time of recording. This is going to be donated to a foundation, so it will become a totally openly held and developed project. We have already a working group of diverse companies working on it, mainly platform holders, but we are planning on expanding that on clients as well and on other technology providers. The development team has been fully briefed on IP compliance and open change conformance since day zero, so they are fully on board. This is very important. Everybody knows what we're doing, also on the legal side of you, and we are deeply integrated into the development. Noitech Bolzano is retaining us, and we are taking care of the legal/compliance parts of the project. So the building blocks we are using for providing compliance from a technological point of view as well. The tool chain we are using internally includes scan code and Fossology. They are both scanners as well. Scan code is a scanner. Fossology has scanners and is a way to manage the licensing information at package level and file level. And the entire process is integrated in CI/CD. CI/CD are triggering the auditing events via a GitLab CI pipeline. We have our own instance of GitLab, which is going to be donated as well. And everything goes through an audit team. No package is released and vetted without human interaction of some sort. And we have even developed our own tools. And the first is Ennio for Friends, and Alberto will talk about it shortly. And we are using SPDX as the lingua franca. The interaction between all the components happens mainly through SPDX, and all the outward artifacts are in SPDX, which we think is a great tool for this job. And we are also advocating reuse, as I said, and not just for our first party, but we are trying to push it for upstream third party, and we are going to make the merge request or pull request in order to provide this information upstream. Of course, we cannot do it on our own. We cannot touch legal information coming from upstream for a number of reasons. We're not using clearly defined not because it's not good, but because it's not covering enough software to be useful for justifying the investment. And we have also produced a dashboard, because everybody is on board. Everybody should be also able to see the status of the effort in bringing compliance and how we are faring in terms of reaching compliance. And now back to Alberto, who will be speaking on the legal tools directly.
Thank you, Carlo. As you just mentioned, we decided from the very beginning to use Fossology as one of the main components of our compliance toolchain. But it's important to note that Fossology is not just a license scanner. Its concept starts from the fact that automated license scanner results are usually riddled with both false positives and false negatives, which need to be cleared by humans. And such clearing work would be impossible to handle without an appropriate software tool. The main purpose of Fossology is precisely this: to offer an advanced graphic interface and some useful functionalities to allow human review and validation of automated scanner results, also enabling multi-user collaboration and reuse of past work and decisions. It's important to keep in mind that Fossology is no anti-plagiarism tool. This because both its license scanners and the user interface rely on the copyright and license texts that are actually found in the source code. Thus, Fossology can help auditors to detect even code snippets pasted within the source code, but just as long as original license notices are preserved. Moreover, Fossology is not a comprehensive tool. On the input side, it requires to be fed by some other application with software uploads, and on the output side, it requires some other tool that collects data and generates a comprehensive bill of material and statistics. But the main problem with Fossology is that it requires a lot of human work. If you decide not to simply rely on automated scan results and to have an audit team review them, Fossology can surely help and ease their work, but it cannot substitute humans. In our case, the target to scan was an entire operating system distribution, which usually consists of hundreds of packages, which in turn means hundreds of thousands of files to review. And even through the help of Fossology, this means hundreds of man-hours. Moreover, as an operating system is always expected to grow over time, maintaining the compliance part would have required a continuous significant workload. That's why at the very beginning we asked ourselves, couldn't we find another way to keep the automated scanners plus human review approach while keeping the workload low? And we thought, why don't we do that the open source way? Is there someone else's work we can reuse? Someone else we can trust, of course. Let's use a metaphor. Imagine you need to organize a party with a lot of people you don't know, and you're afraid that some of them may bring trouble and ruin your party. You should carefully check each of them before letting them in, which is a lot of work. Or you can ask a friend you trust that may already know some of them. If your friend vouches for the guests, you can skip most of the entry checks and enjoy your party. So we asked ourselves, do we have a friend we trust that can vouch for the alien software components that we are willing to invite to our party, meaning to our project? We immediately thought about Debian. The Debian community has a strong policy for including packages in their distribution, a policy involving also collection and human validation of licenses and copyrights for each software package. Moreover, in Debian, such collected and validated information is generally available in machine-readable format. According to DEB5 specifications, the license and the copyright of every single source file must be identified and stored in a specific format in the Debian copyright file of each software package. So we decided to develop and implement some tools in order to identify possibly matching Debian packages, assess their similarity with the alien packages we need to include in our project, and reuse the Debian copyright metadata in order to skip human review on those packages. Of course, we knew that this could not solve everything. As expected, by using it in practice, we found that not always the matching package in Debian is a full match, and that not all packages have a correspondence in Debian. Moreover, we also found that, notwithstanding DEB5 specifications, not all Debian copyright files are actually machine readable. But from our first experience with the scanning of the alpha releases of our project, we assessed that we can save more than 50% of the human review work that would be normally required, which means hundreds of man-hours saved, and, what is more important, a more maintainable compliance activity in the long run. And now, hand over back to you, Carlo.
Thank you, Alberto. And finally, what is going to be given back to the community? Awareness for Friends, the entire project will be released as open source, and we are making public all the compliance documents, the procedures and artifacts. And also the dashboard is going to be published as open source. Everything is going to be Apache licensed. The software bill of material and the entire database of decisions will be released open source. And this is sort of a prime because people are wary of communicating this sort of information, perhaps on legal consideration. But we have decided to take the plunge and do the same thing as Debian has done in a different way. And finally, we're going probably to release the information also contributing to clearly defined, so that the same kind of information will be found also there. And finally, as I anticipated, we are giving back in terms of reuse by fixing the information and making sure that reuse reflect those inconsistencies, and by facilitating upstream project to adopt reuse by providing merge requests in order to use the reuse way of analysis how software is done. Long speech. We are running out of time. I remain available for any further questions, as Alberto is going to be available. And thank you for attention, and look forward to next time. Thank you.